The headline from the Dallas Morning News yesterday. We linked to it there on the website. If you haven't seen this video, go online to KFYO.com. And I also share some of my initial thoughts on the video right there at KFYO.com. Headline, a McKinney police officer on leave after video shows him pushing teen to the ground Friday night. And I really don't know what people are more upset about. The teenager being pushed to the ground, or people are more upset that an officer drew his weapon later on in the same video. I'm not quite sure what people are mad about. Maybe they're mad about both. As I started off the show today, I reminded folks that, remember, it's fashionable now to not like the police. It is a cool thing to do. You're among the hip crowd if you blame the police. If you have a distrust of the police, you are in the in crowd. You are cool. You want to be like everybody else? Don't like the cops. Go ahead and join in with the chant, F the police. Why? Because that's the cool thing to do. We've seen that in Ferguson. We've seen that in Baltimore. You see it in other cities. The cool thing to do, hate the cops. Something else that we have seen nationwide is that cops, because of what happened in Ferguson, what happened in Baltimore, and the rhetoric out of the White House, I believe that has caused some to start targeting police. We've had stories the past few weeks of cops being shot, cops being targeted, cops being attacked. Now, that doesn't make the news 3 days in a row whenever a police officer is attacked. But we have seen that nationally. And I think part of it has to do with the rhetoric that has come out of the administration, the rhetoric that's come out of the news media, and the rhetoric that has come out of some urban areas for decades now. And so knowing that, police are a little bit on edge. Everywhere, police are a little bit on edge. So here's what happened. This past Friday night, at a community pool. Well, it's not even fair to call it a community pool. It's a neighborhood pool. McKinney, Texas, a very affluent city, very affluent neighborhood. They have neighborhood pools. Not every neighborhood, but some have neighborhood pools where the kids, the residents in that neighborhood, they're the ones who are allowed inside the pool. It's not a city pool. It's not a public pool. It is a neighborhood pool. Usually at these pools, you're allowed to bring in one guest, maybe two guests at most. You have to be respectful of your neighbors. You have to be respectful of the community. Obviously, you can't fight. And you can't throw wild, crazy-ass parties. Can't do it. Well, on Friday night, a party got out of control. The story from the Dallas Morning News, a police call about unwelcome teenagers at a community pool thrust this affluent suburb into the national spotlight on race and police relations on Sunday. Police Corporal Eric Casebolt was placed on administrative leave after a video surfaced showing him pulling a 15. Now, remember, she was called a 14-year-old. Now, she's 15-year-old girl to the ground and pinning her down outside a pool party Friday night in an expansive Craig Ranch subdivision. Seconds later, he pulled his gun, pointed it at two teenagers who appeared to try to come to her aid. That's not what I saw in the video. The profanity-laced 7-minute video posted on YouTube Saturday had been viewed more than 1 million times as of yesterday. It shows white police officers trying to control black teens who had scattered as police officers arrived at the pool. The mayor said he expects city staff and police officials to quickly conduct an investigation into the police officers' actions. The McKinney police chief, Greg Conley, who declined to say what specific behavior in the video led to the investigation, said Sunday that the officer was immediately placed on leave. He said 3 officers responded after residents and a private security officer called police to complain that several teenagers did not have permission to use the pool and had refused to leave. The Homeowners Association limits pool use to Craig Ranch residents and 2 guests per household. Several people complained that teenagers had started fighting. The department dispatched additional 9 officers because of the size of the crowd. So remember, they sent 3 officers originally to deal with what the Dallas Morning News calls several teenagers. Well, then they arrived and went, oh boy, we need backup. They called in an additional 9 officers. That's not several teenagers. That is a mob. The girl who was restrained in the video, Doraria Beckton, says that she followed police orders. He told me to walk away, I did. Next thing I know, I'm on the ground. Him getting fired isn't enough. Now, if you actually watch the video, the girl who is put onto the ground is actually told numerous times, go away, walk away, leave this area. She refuses to do so. She's walking around with an attitude. She's just walking around. Now, eventually, she starts to walk away. The officer walks towards her and another group of people, sort of out of sight of the camera. It's further away from the camera in the YouTube video. So he's walking towards her. Something happens. He grabs her arm, tells her to get onto the ground. She refuses to do so. She falls to the ground. He tells her, lay on your stomach. He's giving her orders as a police officer. He places his hand on the back of her head. He doesn't grab and swing her around by the hair, as some have alluded to. He grabs the back of her head, puts her on the ground. She gets back up. She's restraining the police officer at that point. He then, instead of face planting her into the cement, moves her while putting her on the ground into a grassy area. And then, yes, he restrains her by putting his knee into her back. And he tells her over and over again on the video, if you would have listened to me, this wouldn't have happened. If you would have followed orders, this wouldn't have happened. Now, it's a 7-minute long video. It's on YouTube. We have it on KFYO.com. I'll set up the scene a little bit more than what the Dallas Morning News did. Police officers arrive at the scene. They are telling all of these kids, all these teenagers, stop what you're doing. Stop. Stop where you are. Stop. Teenagers flee. Well, police officers at that point are trying to figure out what's going on. So they start sitting people down. They start grabbing teenagers, saying, sit down on the ground. Sit on the ground. Other teenagers begin to run away. They're fleeing the police. An officer has ordered them to sit on the ground. They refuse to do it. Cops are trying to get a handle on the situation. So it's a very emotional, high-energy situation here. So this girl who is put onto the ground by the McKinney police officer, many people are making a big deal that she was in a bikini. Folks, the bikini didn't come off. It's not like the officer was like, hey, you're hot. The officer was trying to do his job. He had ordered her to leave numerous times. She didn't do it. And even when he puts her on the ground, she's still yelling and screaming and resisting. She didn't comply with the officer's demands. And while she's on the ground, 2 possibly teenage men, they could have been adults, but 2 guys approach from the officer's backside. Now, the Dallas Morning News states that the 2 teenage men, they appear to be coming to the girl's aid. If you watch the video, these guys, and if you ever watch thugs fight, they do this deal where they kind of dance before they're ready to fight. You know, they kind of do the thug dance before they're ready to fight. Have you ever seen it? You know what I'm talking about. They kind of, come on, man, come on, I'm going to fight you. They get ready to fight. Well, one of these, and I'm going to say teenagers. One of the teenagers behind the police officer. The officer can barely see him out of the corner of his eye. You can tell from where the officer is standing. In his peripheral vision, he can barely see these two guys. And they're getting ready, man. They're getting ready to throw down. They got an attitude. They're ready. One of the guys grabs the side of his own pants. Probably because, he was sagging a little bit. You know how thugs are. He is sagging a little bit. And he was trying to pull up his pants. If you're a police officer in a mob situation where you have teenagers running around not obeying you, you see two men behind you who are gearing up ready for battle, it appears. Watch the video. And you see one of them grabbing the back or side of their pants. What do you think's about to happen? Knowing what we've seen nationally, what do you think is about to happen? The officer draws his gun, points it immediately at the two adult or two teenage males. He notices that they're not carrying a weapon. He brings his gun down to the ground. Two more white officers enter the frame of the video. Now, this is where you hear some of those out there saying the cop is wrong. They say, look, his buddies are restraining him. No, that's not what happens. The two cops rush up to him after the two males run away. And one of those cops runs after him. At no point is another officer restraining what has been called the out-of-control cop. Doesn't happen. The cop's not losing his mind. You watch the video, cop's not going berserk. He's running after people, trying to sit them down. He's doing his job. One comment that was left on my Facebook page is that, well, look, some of these other police officers, they're taking statements. They're remaining calm while this other officer is running around. This may surprise some of you. Cops have different duties when they arrive to a scene. Some of them collect statements. Others go and catch the people. Well, go ahead. We'll take the break. If you're on hold, I want to get to you because I want to hear from folks what they think about this video. Maybe you think I'm wrong. I don't think the officer used excessive force. I agree with the officer's actions on this. He didn't shoot anybody. No one was injured. And by the way, everyone's bringing race into this. A 15-year-old white girl was also handcuffed at the scene. So it wasn't just black teenagers. But that doesn't fit the narrative. If you've seen the video, I'd love to hear from you. We'll take your calls and play a portion of the video that I guarantee you will not hear in the national media. Chad Hasty Show, News Talk 790 KFYO. Thank you very much for tuning in. We are discussing the McKinney police officer who was on leave as they do an investigation. The video that came out nearly 7 minutes long, you can view it at KFYO.com. Let's go to the phones, see what some folks have to say. Jordan, you're on KFYO.
Chad, how are you this morning?
Doing all right. How about yourself?
Good. Here's what I want to comment on. The police officer, first of all, we don't know what kind of day he was having. Everyone has a bad day. Regardless, he chose a profession where you cannot lose your mind and start yelling at kids or anyone else using profanity like that. So he was wrong, okay. But look, never, ever, ever, ever do you disobey a cop on the street. If you want to fight it out, do it in court. You disagree with the cop, file a citizen's complaint. Never fight it out on the street. It will never end well for you. And also, you think your little compadre is going to come up behind a cop when he's detaining a suspect? That's not going to end well for you either.
Yeah.
So don't cuss at kids. Yeah, Roger, I got it. But don't ever come up behind a cop and think you're about to help your friend on the ground or fight him off or whatever your plan was. No. That will never end well for you.
Yeah, they're lucky. I will say, to those who are saying the cop didn't use any restraint, all he knew is that he saw two guys behind him about to jump him, which that's what it looks like to me in the video. knowing our current climate here in the United States about cops, he showed a lot of restraint. He immediately drew his gun back down once he noticed that there was no weapon. He didn't keep pointing his gun, or I've heard some say that the cop was waving his gun around. Really?
Oh my gosh!
I mean, give me a break. And no, he wasn't. He immediately holstered his gun after he saw that the two guys did not have a weapon. I mean, it played out. I know you bring up the language. You know, I guess if we want to make a complaint about a cop using dirty words, okay, you know, but I mean, you're not going to be placed on administrative leave for that. And it's one of those things that, you know, and I'm sure you watched the video as well. It's not like the kids weren't throwing around some F-bombs either. So,
we don't want to talk about that, Chad. It's an evil cop. We don't talk about the golden youth of our nation.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, the cop. Hey, look, what do we talk about all the time with police? We want them to do a little outreach, right? He's just trying to be cool like the kids.
Oh yeah, he's a thug, all right.
He's just trying to be cool. Hey, Jordan, thanks for the call, man. Appreciate it.
Have a good day, guys.
You know, it's one of these things. None of this would have happened if you comply with the police. By the way, none of the kids were arrested. None of them were arrested. None of them went to jail. When we come back, we'll talk more about this and also some of the comments that are received, even on Facebook, from some people who are just very anti-police, and they don't even know it. We'll be right back. Chad Hasty Show, News Talk 790 KFYO. Talking about McKinney, Texas, police officer on leave. Everyone's making this a racial issue. Of course. White police officer, black mob of teenagers. It's got to be that the white cop only showed up because it was black teenagers in a white neighborhood. That's what it's got to be. Not the fact that they were trespassing. And they were called by security to arrive, and so many teenagers were there causing a scene and fighting that 9 extra cops, a total of 12 police officers, not including security at the pool, had to control the situation. If you haven't viewed the video, this is how the Dallas Morning News explains it. Casebolt told 2 teenagers, quote, "Don't make me blanking run around here with 30 blanking pounds of gear on in the sun because you want to screw around out here," Casebolt told 2 teenagers, ordering them to sit on the grass. Moments later, he grabs Daria. I'm not sure how you say her first name. After she starts to walk away from the scene, 2 black teens run up toward Casebolt and the girl. The officer turns around, pulls out his gun, pointing it at them. 2 other officers intervene before the officer turns back to the girl. They don't really intervene. They run up to see what's going on. They see an officer with his gun drawn, and they're thinking, oh, boy, something's happening. They run up to him, not to restrain him. They didn't grab him and say, "Stop it, put your gun away." By the time the officers get to him, he's already starting to put his weapon back in his holster. His weapon's already pointed down at the ground. The 2 teenage males run away. One of the officers who runs up to Casebolt runs after him. Casebolt's not the only guy running around here. You've got 9 total cops. 12 total cops who are on the scene. And I've seen all these comments on Facebook and social media that this cop was out of control. He has anger issues. He's mad, crazy. If you watch the video, I'll say this about police brutality. Let's think about common sense here. You have an adult male who's been on the police force for 10 years. 15-year-old girl, skinny, scrawny girl, that he is trying to get on the ground. Now, you see all these posts about how he was brutally hitting her or brutally forcing her onto the ground. Let's think about common sense here. An adult man, trained police officer, and it takes him numerous times to get her on the ground. Now, if he was really, really trying to show brutal force, if he was really trying to hurt a 15-year-old girl, does anyone out there really believe that an adult male, a trained police officer of 10 years, if he really wants to get someone on the ground, do you think he can't do it? In my opinion, he's not trying to hurt the girl. He's doing everything he can not to hurt the girl. Why? Because her face isn't planted into the sidewalk. He moves her, yes, maybe by grabbing her arm and pushing her. He doesn't plant her face into the ground until she's on the grass. And even then, it takes him a few tries to do it. We're watching the video on Fox right now. He's not hurting her. She's resisting, which makes it look as though he's hurting her. But think about it with common sense. A 10-year vet on the police force can't put a 15-year-old girl down on the ground. Trust me, if he wanted to, he could have. If he wanted to body slam the 15-year-old onto the pavement, he could have done it. We've seen it happen with real criminals who weigh more than this 100-pound 15-year-old girl. He wasn't trying to beat the crap out of her. She was resisting. This guy wasn't out of control. To me, this guy is in control. You've got two guys, two males, teenage males who run up behind you like they're going to attack you, and you bring out your gun. You notice neither of them have weapons. You draw the gun back down. He did everything, in my mind, that he was supposed to do. They didn't pepper spray anybody. No one bled. No one had an ouchie. And before we get to the phones, I want to play a portion of the video that I guarantee you won't hear. I guarantee you won't hear this in the national media. This is the same police officer that all these people are accusing of being a nutcase, an out-of-control maniac, an abuser. Here's the same police officer talking to two teenage boys at the very end of the video.
Sir, we just came here.
Let me explain something to you all again.
I swear we came at the party.
I personally told you to get on the ground and stay, didn't I? And what did you do when I walked away?
I'm sorry.
So you just did what everybody else did. And what everybody else did was illegal. You did it, and you got caught. They didn't. Now you're sitting here paying for it.
I just came here. We just came here for work.
I don't have a problem. That's not my problem. I asked y'all to sit. You became a part of the mob. You could have been the guys that were doing right, and you weren't. So now you're sitting here in trouble.
We can go get our friends.
You're going to sit here until we get this figured out.
Doesn't sound like an out-of-control cop. Those boys weren't arrested. But they admitted to the police officer, we ran like everybody else. After you told us, we ran like everybody else. They're young. That's a cop who's giving them a life lesson, folks. That, to me, is an officer who's trying to protect those boys' lives later in life. He told them, hey, look, you could have been the good guys. You could have been the good. You could have been over there with the rest of the guys who were walking around. But instead, you ran. After we told you not to, that's breaking the law. That's what he tells them. Does he arrest them? No. And he even tells them, you're going to sit right here just until we figure things out. Tells me cops are just trying to figure out the whole situation. All right, let's do this. I want to be fair to everybody, so let's take the break. If you're on hold, stay where you are. We'll pick you up when we come back here on the Chad Hasty Show. Let's head to the phones. And Billy, you're on the Chad Hasty Show.
Hey, Chad. Hi, my friend. How you doing?
Doing all right. How about yourself?
Okay. Hey, it all boils down to that the kids, it was there at the party, and someone wasn't supposed to be there, and the people told them they need to leave. Because I think they asked, who are you with, or you know anybody that there invited you.
Right.
And then they didn't couldn't tell who they were, and so they told them to leave. So they probably got all of them running their mouth and started talking crap. And because I say that same ones that's doing that probably talk about their parents, call them the B word, talk bad to them with somebody's authority. So I don't blame them. They call the cops. Hey, get to stepping, because what they was doing, they was totally, they should have left. All that wouldn't have happened. But it all go back to the parents, how you raise your kids too. Because mine, when they was at about that age, I told them, I said, hey, I don't want to hear nothing. Nobody called me for school. Y'all doing anything? Because, hey, I can take you. Like that old saying, I brought you to where I could take you out. But, hey, I didn't have no problem with my kids. Every time I go to school, the teacher always say to the person, oh, you have nice kids. And that made me feel good because I know I was doing what I was supposed to do. I didn't want mine to be out there acting a fool, doing stupid stuff like that. Yeah. And now, I see it now, where it works now that they're grown people now, how they act at work and this and that. I told my wife we did a good job, and people say that today.
That's good. That's good, Billy. Thanks for calling in. Appreciate it, man.
All right. Bye-bye.
Have a good one out there. By the way, and I linked to this on my if you follow me on Facebook, I linked to this, but there's a guy in this neighborhood who actually posted on Facebook, here's what went on. And apparently all this spread through social media and some DJ out there that said, hey, everyone go to this pool. And apparently they have, there have been teenagers who have been hopping fences at different neighborhood pools, and a fight actually broke out. Breitbart, Texas, has a video of this. A fight broke out. And so residents, obviously concerned, called police and said, these kids won't leave. These teenagers won't leave. We have residents. It's the residents' pool. And these kids won't leave, and they're causing a disturbance. Please come out here. And all that had to happen were these teenagers had to listen to police or listen to the security guard first when they said, you have to leave. But they didn't listen. And then when cops showed up, the fighting continued, and an angry mob broke out, as we've seen in other stories. Let's go to the phones. And Richard, you're on KFYO.
Good morning.
Morning, Richard.
You had a gentleman on there earlier that was talking about the policeman was unprofessional because he used profanity.
Yeah.
Well, what that person doesn't understand, and people like him, is that the police officers have to be able to mirror the intensity in order to take control. Either that or go above the intensity to gain control of who they're dealing with.
That's a good point.
And with our troops and with our police forces, they've all been hamstrung with the rules of engagement, and that's why we have so many police officers hurt, is because, you have at times in a situation like that, you have to be willing to throw the first punch to stop something. And because our officers aren't able to do that, their risk of injury goes up tremendously.
Yeah.
And like I said, I've been around the teenagers, and they cuss, and they talk nasty. And so it's not nothing that he was, nothing. He did absolutely nothing wrong. And anybody that says that, they're part of the problem.
All right. Hey, Richard, thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
Uh-huh.
With the language thing, and this is what I saw as a major complaint, is that the officer was using naughty words. Okay. Well, guess what? These are teenagers. Probably a lot of the male teenagers and female teenagers have heard this language before. It would probably shock some people that your high school football coaches out there, maybe not every single one of them, but a lot of them drop the F-bomb quite a bit. It would probably shock people. It happens. These weren't 8-year-olds. These weren't 6-year-olds who have invaded a pool. These are 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds who invaded a pool. It's a neighborhood pool. Wasn't a public pool, neighborhood, for use of the neighbors. That's it. I've also heard no officer should put his hands on a teenage girl. Okay, are we just going to wait for the female police to arrive on scene? The cop didn't hurt her. The police officer was doing everything, in my mind, besides just letting her go, in my mind, he was doing everything he could not to injure her. If he wanted to put her face into the cement sidewalk, he could have. But he didn't do it. He waited until she was on the grass. And then he sat her down. And then she flipped over onto her side where she still wasn't laying down. And he said numerous times, on your face, on your face. He didn't grab her head and punch her into the ground. He didn't do that. This is an officer doing his job. And he's attacked. This is a police officer who injured no one. And he's attacked. I really feel bad for police officers. I feel bad, especially the good ones. You know, the good cops who are out there. Because they have to go through a lot of crap. Today, more than ever. And I'm okay with filming police. I'm okay with transparency. I'm okay with all of that. But the fact that some are blowing this up into a racial issue, that it was a white cop who just stumbled upon the area and decided to bust up a pool party. That's how the Huffington Post makes it sound. That these cops just interrupted a pool party. Oh, innocent pool party. Forget the fact that they're trespassing. But this white cop decided to attack a bunch of black teenagers. No, that's not how it went down. So I feel bad for the cops, but at the same time, I applaud you for staying on the job, number one, and for putting up with everything you have to put up with. I think McKinney, Texas will do the right thing. By the way, the neighbors in McKinney, in this neighborhood, according to the Austin American-Statesman, here's how mad they are. They've put out signs thanking the police for guarding their community. Yeah. The national media will blow this up, I promise you. Dallas Morning News already has. Huffington Post already has, to be a racial issue. Tonight, there will reportedly be a march onto the police headquarters in McKinney, Texas. It's pathetic. It's sad. We'll talk about it tomorrow, though. Point out all the inaccuracies that the media is doing. Could happen anywhere, including here in Lubbock, folks. Have a nice day. Rush is next. Follow me on Twitter, @ChadHD Radio, @KFYO as well. We'll see you tomorrow.